Greetings, my friends, and welcome to a lesson about harnessing the power of the sun to heat things up. You say it's not possible, but I and a few other people know that it is, and I'd like to show you how you can harness this technology for your own use at home. Well, what kind of supplies are you going to need to make this happen? You're going to need a cardboard box. Not one that's too beat up, but one that you'll be able to put back together. You will also need aluminum foil and plastic wrap. These two things are going to come in very handy. Next, you'll need some shipping tape and probably some hot glue or at least some kind of glue for gluing things down. A ruler, a box cutter, and some scissors as well as a pencil are also going to make this work for you. And a piece of black paper, this is construction paper, it should work very well. There's just one more thing that might come in handy. Some skewer sticks, popsicle sticks, well, you know, if you don't have any of these lying around, you might be able to use some scrap cardboard to take the place of what this would be used for. Oh, there is just two more things you might really want for this project. One would be some kind of a thermometer. We're going to be hoping to track the temperature inside these ovens, and if you have one, fantastic. The one last thing that you might need, and it's going to be coming in very handy as far as adjusting something at a certain angle, would be a protractor. Now, I'm going to narrate the instructions of how to make all this work over the pictures that I've taken, but you can also find instructions in a printed format for those of you who want to go at your own pace and don't want to listen to me moving on to the next step without you. All right, are you ready? Fantastic. Let's check it out. So friends, here's another picture of all the supplies you're going to need to build this fantastic solar oven. So take account of what you need, make a list if you need to, and gather those supplies. And then you can either print out the tutorial that comes next, which I'll read over and go through, or you can watch it here and try to follow along. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about how this is going to work. So you probably remember from all your explorations of the sun and the earth about the different rays of the sun. And we have two different rays that we're going to see every day. Perpendicular and oblique. And remember, which of those two is the hottest? The perpendicular. It has less distance, less atmosphere to go through. It comes straight down to the ground. It's a nice hot ray. But you know, we like those oblique rays too. But the idea behind a solar oven is to capture as many of those nice hot rays of sun as possible. With our solar oven, we'll have reflectors to help bounce some additional sun in there as well. And what you'll find out, if you can get a thermometer inside of your solar oven, is that we'll be creating something called the greenhouse effect, where the heat enters but gets trapped. The air begins to heat, but it cannot rise out of the box because, well, there's a lid on it. And so the idea is, if we have something in there, we can heat it up. So without further ado, let's take a look at what you are going to do. And the first step is to take that old box and inspect it and make sure it doesn't have any holes or any rough areas. Some of those things can be patched up with tape, but be very wise with the one you pick. You really do want the least amount of holes for that air to escape as possible. The other thing we'll do is we'll tape up the bottom and the sides on the bottom. So those flaps will be nice and sealed. Then go ahead and look at the top of the box. There's those 4 flaps. One of those flaps, and as you see here, I've marked one of them. I want you to draw a 1-inch mark 1 inch from the inside of the box down the flap on both sides, connect those dots, and what you'll have is a line that is 1 inch away from the inside of your box. I want you to cut along that line so you've made one of your flaps reasonably shorter. The next thing to do is to measure the top of your box, the opening of your box in both directions, the length and the width. Write those numbers down. And then add a 1/2 inch to each of those numbers. With a scrap piece of cardboard, go ahead and draw a rectangle on it that matches the size of the top of your box plus a 1/2 inch on each side. And the reason I'm going to ask you to put that extra 1/2 inch on is just in case we don't want you trimming your cardboard too small. It needs to fit on top of that box nice and snug. So better to have a little bit too much than not enough. Cut off that excess bit of cardboard and you should have a rectangle that fits pretty closely to your box, but it may not fit exactly to your box. So you can see in this picture, I've taken the box, turned it upside down, and now I'm actually tracing the box. I shoved the box towards the back corner of the rectangular piece of cardboard, and I'm tracing the box to get the perfect, most snug fitting for that top. I also am going to compare it to the top just to make sure, and if it goes a little over, that's better than going a little under. Go ahead and cut that out and then just double check that it fits nice and snug. Now take that piece of cardboard and trace a rectangle on the inside of it. You're going to measure on each side 1 inch away from every side and create a border that is 1 inch away from the sides. That's how you're going to get that rectangle. And using a box cutter and probably some adult assistance, please cut that rectangle out of that piece of cardboard and you'll have this, a nice little sort of window frame. That's exactly what that is. Double check that that fits snugly, and you might as well see how it fits on that little shortened flap that you had earlier. It's exactly what that's for. Line up that frame with that flap and then glue it to it. And take your time with this. Have a second pair of hands if you need it. Be careful with the glue gun. You're also welcome to use other slower drying glues, but you'll need to wait a little bit longer for that to dry. And here's a clip showing you that we've created a hinge. You might be seeing that solar oven starting to take shape and form. The next step is to grab the aluminum foil and to coat the inside. I cut my strips after measuring them and laid them down very carefully, trying to make sure there were as few wrinkles as possible. Remember, we're reflecting rays of the sun, and if that aluminum foil is wrinkled, it's going to bounce it all over the place. It'd be crazy in there. So go ahead and work on coating your box. Now, the other thing I need to think about is your box might be bigger or smaller than mine. So the size of your pieces of aluminum foil and all of that might be different. But the one thing you can do is to stretch that aluminum foil up from the bottom of the box over the top of the flap and to tape it right on the top of that flap there after folding it over it. That'll help keep it in place while you smooth it out. All right, you've got that black construction paper or some kind of black something that's going to go to the bottom of your solar oven. That is the heat sink. That is where all the heat is going to be directed. It's going to absorb it. And here, I've taken that black piece of paper and just put it right on the bottom. Now I'm checking that fitting of the frame. I've got my reflectors out, and there's something I've got to do with those reflectors. There's a lot of studies on this, and you can check this out, but the most efficient angle for reflection of the sun is 60 degrees. And you can see on here, I have a protractor, and I am aligning that flap to 60 degrees, and you'll want to do the same with your 3 reflectors, getting them to 60 degrees. If you drew a line straight through the top of the box to the other side of the flap, you want to create an angle of 60 degrees from that on one side. For the side of the box that's open, 120 degrees. Now there's a lot of ways you can do that. Those skewer sticks or popsicle sticks or some scrap cardboard can help you to create supports that'll keep those at 60 degrees. But you still might need to tweak them every so often. The next thing we've got to do is we've got to create a seal on our hatch. Grab your cling wrap and wrap it around that hatch. Tape it in place. You want a nice clear panel for that sunlight to go in and for that heat to stay in. And ooh, you can see my grow lights on there from my aquaponics tank. How cool. Okay, well here's our finished product. I use the skewer sticks after I set the flaps at 60 degrees as a sort of border to keep them stationary. But the next step is to head out on a nice, sunny, not very windy day and try this out. Well, today seems like a good day. Let's head out, friends.
Hey friends, out here with the solar oven. It's maybe somewhere in the 70s, but it is bright, a little breezy. Let's give this thing a try. Now, something else I did with it is I stuck in one of our classroom thermometers and tried to make sure it was nice and sealed up on the side there. So what I've also done, I've brought some bricks, some little pieces of bricks to position this because we do want to angle it right with the sun's rays and get the most out of them. So you will see a square of light, or really a rectangle of light in your solar oven, and you want to line it up so as much of it is showing as possible, the least amount of shadow. Now your reflectors will capture some of that too and help you out with that, but you really want it directed right at the sun. There we go. And these can also help keep it in place if it is a little bit breezy. And so now we want to wait and see that temperature rise. We want to see how much it will rise because that may help influence how we change our design. Maybe we need a bigger box or more reflectors, or maybe we need to give it more time, or maybe we chose the wrong day. There's a lot of things we can track here. We can check the temperature every couple minutes and graph that. We can compare several of these solar ovens with a bar graph. We could sit here and draw it and just think about all the amazing things we might want to cook in it if it's successful. Yeah, it's probably been about a minute. Let's check the temperature and see what it is. And we're reading 140 degrees and it is still rising. And so another thing you may need to do is the sun is moving. You're gonna have to change this every so often. You might find a certain angle is working really well. Also, just make sure it's nice and sealed up. It's a very snug fit in here. Up to 144. This is exciting. Well, you know what? I'm gonna give it some time to heat up and then let's check on it. Hey friends, check it out. So we gave it a go, let it sit for about 10-15 minutes, and it is climbing up over the 160 degree mark. You know, I'll keep tracking it through the day, but as you track yours, really think about how you can improve it. Maybe build another one. Experiment with all the dimensions, size, and materials. It's a wonderful world out there with the sun giving us power to do so many things. It can even grow plants too. Did you know that? See you later, friends.